At first, I was only going to mention this in a later video, because this retrospective primarily focused on the video game series to this point, and I've never really covered this kind of media before. But I felt that if I did that, I might be ignoring something people might not know that much about. That and the entire point of this retrospective is to cover as much about the Bloody Roar series as possible, even stuff beyond the games. And after dedicating that one video to a piece of Bloody Roar 2 promotional material, I'd feel kinda guilty if I didn't cover this in some larger capacity. So, without further ado, Bloody Roar the Fang. Or Bloody Roar the Fang. Because, you know, in Japanese they pronounce it... whatever.
Manga doesn't have intro music. This is just something I made up. Manga doesn't have intro music. I'm out of lyrics. That's all I got, guys. I mean, I don't really know what else to put here. If you thought the Bloody Roar game series was obscure, I don't know what you'd call the Bloody Roar manga. Titled Bloody Roar the Fang, it first appeared in the now-defunct monthly Shonen Jump, and was released in 2 volumes in 2001 and 2002 by Jump's publisher, Shueisha Inc. It was eventually acquired by Gintosha, another Japanese publisher, and printed as a special edition compilation in 2008 via Comic Burrs, about 5 years after the last Bloody Roar game came out.
I'm late for a very important date.
It was written and illustrated by Tomo Maruyama, who also worked on... and the manga differs from the games in a few particular ways. For one, none of the characters from the game appear in it, with a couple exceptions I'll get into much later. However, many of the characters in the manga do seem to be modeled after characters from the series. Fang himself is a not-so-subtle Yugo clone, and...
I'm your clone! Who are you? My clone!
Shut up! If we do that for every character from the manga that has some resemblance to a character from the video game, this video is just going to spend the next 2 minutes looping that I'm a clone thing over and over and over and...
The female lead, Mashiro Toba, is like Alice, in that she has some sort of relationship with Fang and has a rabbit beast form, which is fitting since her name basically means rabbits, 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 white, white rabbits. She also becomes extremely protective of Fang around other people, usually other women, as you'll see later. Akino Hayakawa is like Oriko in that she's the more playful type of character, is friends with Mashiro, and eventually has a half-beast form, though originally she's a straight-up cat zoanthrope instead of a what the hell am I looking at zoanthrope. Also, she has a much more vindictive side to her. Again, as you'll see later on. Shirakumo is like Long, but he's... let's say more outgoing than Long, as evidenced by his being around kids most of the time. And Lionhead, yes, Lionhead, is like Gato in that he keeps giving advice to the protagonists, but only gets physically involved when needed. Now that's not to say everyone in the manga is like another Bloody Roar character. In fact, a lot of the supporting characters have little to no resemblance to any existing cast members, like Namaiki and Momo, or even Hashiba. Another thing that hadn't been addressed in the game, but happens a lot in the manga, is that zoanthropes are fully capable of speech. Fang has several back and forths with other zoanthropes during fights, and there's even Lionhead from before who ends up being a major source of exposition in later chapters. There are also some beast forms in the manga that don't show up anywhere else in the series, such as alligators, fish, a mermaid, and even a few mythical beings, just to name a few.
While it was released in 2 individual volumes of 6 chapters each, by far the best way to get a hold of this is to get the 400+ page compilation. However, depending on which way you go, there is a difference between the two.
Either version has something that the other doesn't. The compilation has an extra chapter which previously only appeared in the Bloody Roar Extreme V-Jump book, but the individual volumes have an extra couple pages in the back called Bloody Roar the Mashiro, where the writer in the form of a frog reveals things about the story's development. Alright, they're not even pretending Mashiro isn't Alice now. Anyway, one example is that an early version of Mashiro had her as Fang's glasses-wearing intellectual assistant, but the character was changed to appeal to a more typical shonen demographic.
There's just one small catch to this though. This was never officially released outside of Japan, and as such, there's no English translation for it. Not even from fan sites or online manga compilers. So if you want to be able to read any of this, you've got to know Japanese. Which brings me to a segment I like to call Written Language, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Artwork.
Now don't get me wrong, English is a screwed up language in itself, with its S's sounding like Z's and G's sounding like J's and a bunch of words that sound the same but are spelled really differently. But then you have Japanese, with its Roman lettering, katakana, hiragana, and kanji, katakana and hiragana having 48 characters each, mostly consonant-vowel combinations, and kanji having over 2,000 characters. Factor in that several of those have many different meanings depending on their context, and learning Japanese as anything but a first language can be a daunting task. Hell, I've spent a year and a half studying Japanese to this point, and on a scale of 1 to 10, my ability to speak and understand the language is somewhere between asshole otaku and Big Bird.
Ohio.
Ohio?
Hi.
Funny, you don't sound like you're from Ohio.
So with all that established, let's try to understand any goddamn thing that's going on in this manga.
Just a couple things to note before we get too far in. First, this can be considered either shonen or seinen. For those of you who get out of the house on a regular basis and don't know what either of those mean, shonen is typically aimed at younger boys with more action and comedy than dialogue. Also, like I mentioned earlier, this was published in monthly Shonen Jump. Still, some people might call this a seinen manga, something aimed at young adult males, as it does have moments which are more driven towards storylines and character development.
So hey, you. Yeah, you. You know who you are. You people? You? The ones who were bitching about my focusing too much on the story in previous videos?
That and there's furigana in this, or a small hiragana written next to all the kanji in the manga, something commonly found in seinen.
Shonen desu ka? Seinen desu ka? Dochira to oimasu ka? Sorry. Don't be surprised if that happens again.
While covering all 440 plus pages of this manga is damn near impossible without being fluent in the language, I am going to try and do my best to show and describe some of what goes on here.
Hold on to your butts.
The manga starts with a chapter called Jinro the Fang, which as you might expect is spent establishing the primary characters and general setting. It starts with a brief sequence discussing people turning into strange part animal beings in a dream sequence involving Fang and Mashiro, with Mashiro slipping in and out of beast form, and okay, that only took how long? 3 pages before we got a nude shot of the female lead? Granted, you can't really see anything, and the fan service is few and far between in the manga, but still. She gets woken up by her friend Akino, who tells her she's late for school, and Mashiro realizes as she wakes up that her hands and feet are dirty for some reason. As Mashiro hauls ass to school, she comes across Fang on the street, or as she refers to him, the guy with the scar on his forehead. She has flashbacks to her dream with Fang referring to her as the White Rabbit, and promptly decides to run the hell away. Now, what do you think happens next? Being a young woman in a pressure situation, she somehow trips over a rock the size of a ping pong ball. At least they had the decency to not turn this into a panty shot. Mashiro has an internal monologue about how she's been helping her dad since she was young, and because of it, she's constantly going between home and school. I assume this is to engender sympathy to her character, but we never actually see anyone from her family. Or for that matter, we never see her do much that a normal student wouldn't do.
Show, don't tell. I know I've said that way too much about storytelling in general, but I keep saying it because it's one of the most commonly broken rules.
She gets to class at the last minute, arriving only moments before her teacher, Hashiba-sensei, walks through the door. He starts off class by telling them about how lately there's been something bad on the streets and what a serious matter this is.
I'm super cereal.
Her friend Akino gossips with her for a little bit before Mashiro reflects on the story all about how her life is getting flipped turned upside down, and we should all take a minute just sit right there as she tells the teacher about how she saw Fang in Bel Air. Hashiba tells Mashiro if she sees the man again to tell the police about him, which is great advice given what happens a few pages later. Akino is waiting for Mashiro outside the classroom and catches her admiring the teacher as they leave the room. This is quickly turning into the manga equivalent of that song, Don't Stand So Close to Me by the Police. Hey, wait a minute! Side-by-side comparison, please. They look like the characters from the music video.
What a bunch of Nisa no Futoboru! Ow! Gah! Sorry.
And then we have our first zoanthrope sighting, as that night a trio of them are stalking the streets when they come across an old man.
Given what we've seen from previous Bloody Roar games, I'm gonna guess that they intimidate him, maybe beat him up a bit, trash his home, or outright murder him! Holy shit!
We see the rabbit zoanthrope from Mashiro's previous dream sequence watching the act and then looming over the man's body. So of course, Mashiro wakes up and finds her bedsheets and feet covered in blood. I think she handles it pretty well, considering she never thinks to call the police despite her friend Akino also being missing. And you know, the teacher telling her to do this before. In fact, she still isn't back the next morning when Mashiro passes by the scene where the man was murdered. As Mashiro chides herself for wondering if this is the work of a group of street demons, she runs into Hashiba. No, literally, she runs into him. They go back to his office and Mashiro tearfully tells him that Akino went out last night and hasn't come back since. She comes clean about everything else too. The dreams, waking up every night with the stains on her hands and feet, how she thinks this is related to Akino's disappearance but doesn't know how. Hashiba tries to calm her down by saying he'll report Akino missing, and then they can deal with her other problem.
Because that's the right way to react to someone telling you, I woke up this morning with blood on my hands.
A still distressed Mashiro is at home that night when she gets a phone call from Akino. Her voice is weak, but she tells Mashiro she's at the school in their classroom and that she should hurry.
I realize at this point the artist was trying to make it look like Mashiro's worried, not just about her friend being kidnapped, but also about going out on the streets alone at night when someone was recently murdered. But when I look at this picture of her, all I can think is her saying, "This is fucking delicious!"
And so she storms off to the school as Fang watches from a rooftop. Am I the only one who finds it strange that her night clothes have pants but her casual wear doesn't? She gets to the school that night and finds Akino in her usual classroom, claiming she can't remember anything from yesterday, when Fang appears behind Mashiro and says, in so many words, that something doesn't smell right and pinpoints it to Akino, right as she turns into a cat. Fang tells Mashiro to hurry up and get away from Akino before getting backhanded across the room and into a... oh, shit.
Well, protagonist is dead, manga's over, bye!
Suddenly, Hashiba walks into the room. Mashiro screams for help, saying that Akino has turned into a monster, to which Hashiba breaks down in laughter about how she's calling her friend a monster, implying that she might be one too.
By God! You mean...
Yes! Hashiba-sensei was behind it the entire time, using a serum he developed to transform people into half-animal beasts under his control.
Who would have thought the only other person to get significant face time in this manga was the bad guy?
He explains that with a certain chemical, he can trigger instant beast transformation in people, then asks if Mashiro wants to see for herself. And of course by this, he means injecting her with the serum. Hashiba orders the other zoanthropes, who were also students of his, to seize her, and just as Mashiro's about to give up, Fang stands up and says Mashiro isn't alone in having this quote-unquote sickness. He says people like this are able to heal faster, especially when the moon is out at night.
Let's just pretend Fang isn't saying that because he's the only wolf man in the room.
And with that, Fang transforms into his wolf form, over the course of 3 pages. Fang basically tells the teacher he's in deep shit now, only for Hashiba to send his minions after Fang. They only manage to get a couple shots in on the Wolfman as he pummels the lot of them, including Akino. But as he's about to deliver the final blow to her, Mashiro jumps in the way. Hashiba, after seeing all his creations get their asses kicked so hard they all get knocked out of beast form, realized that his creations are temporarily incapacitated following a shift back into human form. He feels obligated to put an end to his experiments and shoots Akino in the leg before calling for the end by shooting Mashiro.
Oh, now the other protagonist is dead. Alright, bye!
Actually, Fang stops the bullet with his arm. How the bullet doesn't either go through it or end up lodged inside it since we never see Fang get it taken out later, I don't know. Either way, Hashiba gets punched through a window and ends up a bloody mess on the school's front lawn. Fang returns to human form and goes on about how he thought he was the only person like him until he found out about Mashiro's nightly bunny parkour antics, and that's why he was pursuing her. He also explains how Hashiba wanted to keep tabs on both of them, as he also wanted natural-born zoanthropes to complement his synthetic ones. That's what drove Fang to not just stop Hashiba's initial plan, but punch him out the goddamn window and leave him, as he put it, beyond repair.
He comes back at the end of Chapter 5 and he's the recurring villain for the rest of the series.
As he's about to leave though, Mashiro stops him and asks if she can thank him for saving her and Akino by helping him as he investigates other zoanthrope-related incidents in the area. While Fang is taken back a bit at first, they formally introduce themselves. It's here that one of the only mentions of Fang's real name, Yugatsukiyami, occurs. Fang also reveals another reason he's tracking zoanthrope activity. He's a freelance journalist who tends to write about the occult.
Yeah, well, I'm freelance, pal.
After that, the students seem to be back to normal. Akino's in the hospital being treated for a gunshot wound, and no one seems to remember anything from the time they spent as murderous beasts. It's revealed that Hashiba-sensei's body vanished after the events of that night, leaving behind a large pool of blood, and that wasn't the end of the unease on the streets of nondescript Japanese town X.
The next few chapters may seem a little random, but they do introduce supporting characters that have a significant role for the rest of the series, and help solidify the relationship between Mashiro and Fang.
Chapter 2, Ghost of Minotaurs, revolves around a murderous bull seeking vengeance for the death of his son who— Alright, come on! What woman in their right mind wears a cow print dress for anything but crappy Halloween costumes? I get it, it's a cow and a bull, but come on! The third chapter, Encounter with the Beast-Faced Man, deals with a zoanthrope that has been breaking into hospitals and drinking their bags of blood, as Fang visits Akino and— What? They're playing Bloody Roar 3? As the characters they're inspired by? Not only that, Fang gets his ass kicked so bad that he becomes suspicious about his controller. Come on, Fang, that excuse is reserved for 9-year-olds and people who play first-person shooters online.
Why did I bother making that distinction? Aren't those pretty much the same people?
Meanwhile, Mashiro goes into the mountains by herself to find a zoanthrope, who turns out to be a dude in a suit who goes by Lionhead. Mashiro at first thinks he's the one who was involved with the incident at the hospital, until a man crawls out of the greenery. As Mashiro tries to help him, he exclaims his need for blood and turns into, "Hey, wait a minute!"
Oh look! It's what a bad zoanthrope actually looks like! It's not as cosplay friendly or as easy to beat off to, but it's a hell of a lot more realistic, isn't it? Shit. No, cut out what I said there. Cut!
As the bat is about to sink its teeth into Mashiro, Lionhead jumps in front of Mashiro and takes it on himself, and almost immediately gets batted away as Mashiro gets kidnapped. However, she fends off the bat with her beast form, followed by Lionhead knocking him back into human form, and then Fang shows up and just plain knocks him out, apparently tracking Mashiro by her scent.
I know he's a wolf and all, but that's still kinda creepy.
Fang and Lionhead proceed to argue a bit about what was going on before Lionhead departs, which leads into Chapter 4, Aoi in the Rain, where Fang finds a woman named Aoi after fending off a couple of guys single-handedly. No really, he was holding a bag of groceries as he was fighting them. He takes her with him to his place while Mashiro is visiting Akino, watching a news story about a mummified mermaid. Needless to say, Mashiro is a little bothered by Aoi's sudden presence, mostly to Fang's detriment. The same men from earlier seem to be looming outside the hospital, but that doesn't stop the three of them from going out and having Aoi leer ominously at a pet shop's fish tank.
God, this bit is getting old.
Eventually, Mashiro leaves Aoi and Fang behind, and of course, she gets jumped by the same people from earlier who happen to be fish zoanthropes. One of them shows up at Fang's place, saying that he wants Aoi to come with him to their village, and how his people have Mashiro captive. This quickly devolves into a fight where Fang almost rips the guy's arm off, forcing him to run away. Fang isn't able to catch him, but Aoi reveals that she is, in fact, a mermaid. She helps lead Fang to where Mashiro is being held captive, a seaside village in some place whose name I can't translate for shit, so let's just call it Devil's Tree Beach. Chapter 5 continues the previous story with Aoi, Deep Sea, where it's revealed that Aoi was not only not a natural zoanthrope, but she was supposed to be a sacrifice for the elder god of the beach. With her gone though, Mashiro was put in her place, And holy shit, an anglerfish zoanthrope. Screw it, manga's over. You're not gonna top that for me. This group believes they are the descendants of their god and worship him accordingly by sacrificing Mashiro, as well as 2 other children, to their god, which, surprise surprise, is a giant fish. How has no one outside of this village seen this thing? Meanwhile, Fang tries to fight his way through damn near the entire village and gets to Mashiro, but loses his beast form, forcing Mashiro to turn into a rabbit and get Fang out of the way of the fish god.
Sorry, it's just... this still isn't as ridiculous as the rest of the manga.
After seeing how important Mashiro is to Fang, Aoi goes out to the cliff Mashiro lands on and gives herself up to the fish god, passing one of her hair clips to Mashiro before getting eaten.
Moment of silence, please, for Aoi. Okay, long enough.
Meanwhile, some guy and his hired goons watch the action as he talks about having driven off the clients of Tylon. Tylon? Tylon? There's something directly from the games in this manga after all?
Abandoned video!
Oh, and the guy is Hashiba. Yeah, real shocking. Anyway, chapter 6, Kuroi Neko, Cat People. Wait, so the chapter is called Black Cat, Cat People? That seems a little redundant. Whatever. Akino and Mashiro get into an argument over what the latter is doing with Fang, and it becomes so loud Mashiro gets thrown out of the hospital, where Hashiba is posing dramatically on the roof. How did he get on the roof?
A Hashiba on the roof. Sounds crazy, no? But here in our Japanese city of Otatsu, you might say each one of us has a Hashiba on the roof, trying to scratch out a memorable antagonist without being face-punched by a wolfman.
We cut to Fang, who reads a story about 2 sisters and a cat. When a man fell in love with them, the cat became defensive and vengeful, taking the form of a person and killing the man.
Ah shit, do I need to do the foreshadowing thing again?
Unfortunately, one of the sisters saw this and the cat was forced to run away. Realizing its mistake, it would eventually turn into stone and become a relic. A relic where, after a call from Akino, Mashiro goes with Fang to meet her. Akino is not only feeling much better since being shot in the leg, but also has a bottle of pills from Hashiba, which allow her to transform into a zoanthrope again. Unfortunately, she can only transform halfway, though that doesn't stop her from lashing out at Fang for being, in her eyes, the root of the problems between her and Mashiro. Mashiro comes to Fang's aid, which causes Akino to turn against her entirely and run off with Hashiba. Needless to say, Mashiro takes this kind of hard, even if Akino was kind of dickish to her at points. From here the story tends to center on the search for ancient artifacts in order to summon forth a great being of destruction, the wild god known as Oagito no Magami. Chapter 7, Artifact, sees Fang and Mashiro following a letter they got saying to visit the Genbu Shrine. The Genbu being a mythical tortoise-like creature with a snake attached to it that guards the northern heavens. Fang finds fresh blood right as Lionhead jumps out of the shrubs and grabs Mashiro. It turns out he wrote the note to show them something before they get to it. He reveals a couple red crystals with something in them which turn out to be the eyes of an ancient god. He proceeds to give background from many years ago about a coyote beastman who was too proud to conceal his beast form, who would become Oagito no Magami. Oagito went on a rampage, destroying other beast gods until 4 of them made a stand, the Shijin, or Gods of the Four Directions. They defeated him and burned the body, but parts of it weren't destroyed by this, including the eyes, claws, fangs, tail, and heart, which were scattered to the north, south, east, and west shrines, though obviously one of them is with Lionhead now. Fang finds this a bit hard to believe, at least until Hashiba shows up and reveals that Lionhead used to work for Tylon. This distraction allows one of Hashiba's goons to attack Mashiro, which the goon turns out to be the Genbu, one of the Shijin from the story. Akino is understandably pissed about Mashiro being the target of the initial attack, as Fang tries to punch the Genbu, finding out the hard way that punching the tortoise thing in the shell, even on the underside, is a bad idea. Meanwhile, Hashiba and the other goon threaten Lionhead as he takes out and tosses a pair of gloves to Fang, which as far as I can tell are called Wolfgang Silver, to use against the Genbu. A single punch from it causes the Genbu to revert to human form and, luckily, knocks the guy into the goon holding Lionhead. They retreat as Fang talks with Lionhead about where to go to make sure Hashiba and company don't get the other pieces. and they decide he should go to the Shrine of the Vermilion Bird to the south for Chapter 8, Last Flight.
Get it? Because it involves a bird guy. A very old bird guy, whose next flight will likely be his last. I just thought I would spell that out for you, since these titles can be a little vague or strange sometimes.
Fang and Mashiro come across an old man near a mountain summit while looking for the shrine. The old man offers to let Mashiro and Fang rest at his place, and when he asks what they're doing in this neck of the woods, Fang says they're looking to protect something.
Smooth, Fang. Smooth like a dirt road after a thunderstorm.
The man catches on right away that they're looking for the shrine and nearly slices Fang's head off before ordering them to get the hell off the mountain. Fang recaps everything they went through earlier: Lionhead, Hashiba, Tylon, the fight, the gloves, before the man lowers his sword. He gives them a rough idea of where it might be, and before he can come back to them with some rice, Fang and Mashiro have already gone and found the shrine set up inside a cave. Mashiro goes ahead to try and take the claws, but as she does, several skulls topple out with it, and a bird with a sword attacks her. Fang fends off what turns out to be Koku, the guard of Oagito's claws, who is all too willing to kill them to make sure the claws don't fall into the wrong hands. They fight what they think is the old man, except that he eventually shows up and calls out the black bird. It turns out that the old man, Shuho, is the real Shijin, who saves Fang from falling into the lava moat surrounding the shrine itself. He declares Fang the new protector of the Oagito's claws and dispatches Koku before forcing him into the lava, killing them both.
He didn't look like he had to do that.
Anyway, Chapter 9, Dragon Tears. Fang and Mashiro head east to look for the next Shijin, the Azure Dragon, when they get attacked by a woman dual-wielding short swords. Fang manages to disarm her and knock her out. Much to the dismay of Mashiro, he keeps her around. Meanwhile, the woman, named Yato, wakes up from a dream, or memory, in which she was elected the protector of a piece of the Oagito at a young age, then killed her parents. It turns out she has the piece of the tail with her, and vows not to let Fang steal it while he pulls a Batman and asks Yato,
Why do you want to kill me?
In doing so, however, he makes her cry, and he makes matters worse by tripping and falling on top of her.
Okay, I think we all know where this is going. Cue Mashiro arriving and being pissed at Fang in 3, 2, 1.
Just then, Mashiro comes back and throws a shit fit. She storms off as Yato, seeing she has Fang in a precarious position, offers him and Mashiro to stay at her place instead of sleeping outside. Fang agrees, and they have a little awkward conversation in which Yato reveals she has the tail of the Oagito. She's reluctant to let go of it and holds off on deciding whether to let Fang have it until the morning, thus leaving another opportunity for her to force herself upon Fang, much to his surprise? Delight? I don't know, that face could mean a lot of things. At the same time, Mashiro notices Fang's clothes hanging up, including his special gloves from earlier, and as she gets the idea to make sure he has them just in case, Yato transforms into the Azure Dragon and attacks him. And apparently Azure Dragons spit lasers capable of slicing through walls.
Since when did dragons go from breathing fire to breathing lightsabers?
As Fang gets his arm caught in the dragon's mouth, Mashiro comes in and tosses one of the Wolfgang's silver gloves to him, allowing him to knock Yato back into human form. Yato apologizes to both of them later and entrusts the tail to Fang before Mashiro quickly ensures there won't be any more awkward moments between the two, dragging him off to find the next part of the Oagito in Chapter 10, Black and White. No! Fang and Mashiro head west, their directions leading them to the place where the Oagito's fangs are held, a nursery school. The owner comes out when the children point out the weird people at the gate, and he explains that there was a shrine here last year, but he does still have the object from the shrine, wearing the Oagito's fangs around his neck. Fang goes over the whole Tylon situation to the man who turns out to be Shirakumo, as Mashiro plays with the Oh, god damn it! You know what? Fine. I'm done. I'm out of here. Not gonna put up with that. Fang tries to empathize with Shirakumo in that he looks after Mashiro the way Shirakumo looks after the kids, but Shirakumo asks for him and Mashiro to help look after the kids for a bit, in appropriate aprons and headbands no less, to make sure they're genuine about what they're doing. Despite his initial resistance, Fang does get along with the kids and passes what Shirakumo calls the first test. Before Fang can get an answer as to what he means by that, Shirakumo runs up to him, palm thrusts him in the chest, and steals the pieces of the Oagito Fang had on him. Fang tries to get them back from what turns out to be the White Tiger Shijin, but even with the Wolfgang Silver, Fang can't land a single punch on Shirakumo and gets dispatched rather quickly.
Whoa, wait. It took us until chapter 10 to find anyone for Fang to fight that had any kind of martial arts experience?
I know Kung Fu.
Akino shows up and it becomes apparent that Shirakumo was actually on Tylon's side the entire time. Shirakumo reveals that the shrine for the Oagito's fangs was here when he was younger, but after his father, who he didn't get along so well with, died, he demolished it and built the nursery school in its place, and it was Akino who convinced him to help out Tylon. Akino then tries to get Mashiro to finally break away from Fang, but again, Mashiro outright scolds Akino for even suggesting that, given what she went through earlier with Hashiba. As Mashiro is restrained by Shirakumo, Fang rises up and hits him with the Wolfgang Silver. Shirakumo is knocked out of beast form, but is still able to escape with Akino and the 4 parts of the Oagito, leaving an exhausted Fang behind. Oh, well, this is easy to translate.
Damn!
Suddenly, 2 people come out from hiding who were apparently tracking the pieces of the Oagito themselves, which leads to Chapter 11, Fang and Mashiro, Beast Drive. The twins, a boy named Namaiki and his sister Momo, say they need Fang's help, or at least Momo does because Namaiki's kind of a prick. They inform Fang that Tylon has all the pieces of the Oagito.
Weren't there 5 pieces to the Oagito though? Don't they still have to get the heart to... Oh. Well, that's 2 Shijin dead and 2 working for Tylon. Good luck accomplishing anything, guys.
They go back to Fang's office, where the twins reveal they were almost caught trying to escape one of Tylon's guys dressed like Q from Street Fighter III Third Strike, but Lionhead apparently retained Gato's charging punch attack and used it to rescue them. Namaiki uses this to play on Fang's own strength, which Fang was already questioning following the encounter with Shirakumo, causing him to storm out of the room and Mashiro to slap the shit out of Namaiki, calling him all talk, among other things, before going to Fang to try and talk to him. Fang vows to go off on his own and put a stop to Tylon's plans, while in what looks like the Arclay Mountains near Raccoon City, Hashiba celebrates having all the pieces he will use to restore the Oagito. Akino shows some signs of regret for what she's done, as Hashiba follows the scientist into the next room, locks the door behind them, then proceeds to reveal that he artificially gained the same genetic lineage as the Shijin, turning into a fox, the same as the man from the story who became the Oagito no Magami.
I swear, if you use this as a reason to cut away from something else so that you don't show the scientist getting killed, I'm gonna...
Cut back to Fang, who has Mashiro catch up to him and, quite literally, try to knock some sense into him about not trying to go into battle solo. And in the process, he does something he hasn't done in the manga to this point. A beast drive. He notes to himself how much stronger and faster he is than ordinary while doing this, and that through Mashiro, he's become more capable than he ever would have been by himself. And on that note, the 2 of them revert to human form and share a moment together.
Everyone get your awes out of your system now, because this only lasts about 1 page.
They're quickly interrupted by the faint sound of Akino's voice. They spot the Tylon building in the distance where Akino is screaming in horror at Hashiba, who has fully become the Oagito no Magami. Okay, look, Shirakumo, I know you're good at what you do and all, but look at what you're fighting. I don't think this is going to end well for you. And it doesn't! He gets eaten at the beginning of Chapter 12, which is simply given the name Oagito no Magami, Bloody Roar. Almost all of this chapter is the fight against the Oagito, which breaks out of the side of the building. At first, Fang and Mashiro can't even get to it because they're stopped by 2 trenchcoat-wearing goons who stun?
Okay, appropriate callback to the games, but it's kind of weird to just see this now since the manga is about to end.
However, Namaiki shows up and transforms into...
Show of hands, anyone? Anyone? Anyone not able to get this? Anyone not able to get this, even though you can kind of tell it from his general appearance and his sister wearing a shirt that says monkey magic on it?
He transforms into a monkey zoanthrope and fends off the goons so Fang and Mashiro can go ahead. Meanwhile, Akino, in half-beast form, bolts from the scene. She loses her beast form and is about to pop another pill to activate it again, when Lionhead shows up and smacks the bottle away, telling her to give it up. She points out his hypocrisy as he was someone who used to work for Tylon, but he makes it clear that he wants to undo everything he did wrong from that time. So, now just a regular person, Akino comes across Fang and Mashiro, just as the Oagito comes across Akino. Fang immediately uses his Wolfgang Silver on it, even saying sayonara to it as he does so, and nothing happens.
I guess it's not that surprising though, this thing doesn't really have a beast form so much as a nightmare Muppet form.
The Oagito grabs Fang and drains him of his beast form before making a grab for Akino. Mashiro blocks it, and this is where Akino finally gets it into her head that Mashiro still really cares about her, even with Fang in the picture. At the same time, Fang realizes what's happening to them, and goes into beast form, triggers a beast drive, and swats away the Oagito's hand from Mashiro, getting both her and Akino to safety before heading back to fight the Oagito again. Meanwhile, inside the Oagito, Shirakumo stirs back to life and manages to fight his way partially out of its body. Apparently the Oagito's power channels through him.
Then how did he get so strong before eating Shirakumo? I don't even know if that's an inconsistency, because I don't know Japanese well enough to translate this well enough to be able to answer that.
Either way, Shirakumo tells Fang to basically think of the Oagito as a giant enemy crab, and himself as the weak point to attack for massive damage.
I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Fang is reluctant at first, but he eventually does use the Wolfgang Silver on Shirakumo specifically, and the Oagito literally breaks apart. Or explodes. Or both.
For an endless, enduring dream and 1,000 points of light. This is my mission, and I will complete it.
Well, that certainly was a thing. I mean, I can't give that valid an opinion on something that I barely understand, but I think they chose a decent place to end it.
The main conflicts between Fang and Hashiba, Mashiro and Akino, and Lionhead and Tylon, though they weren't as apparent in a few of the earlier chapters, developed over time and finished right at the end of the manga. I would have liked to have seen more from some of the secondary characters like Namaiki and Momo, who seemed like they could have easily been written out of the story entirely. And even the people in the fish tribe. It's a village of fish people! I'm sure they'd like to not have the Oagito no Megami wrecking their shit, or hell, have the Oagito fight their fish god thing. If the fish god wins, given the size of the Oagito, he wouldn't have to eat any sacrifices for at least a year.
But we're not done yet. We still have the matter of that bonus comic that was included in the compilation from the Bloody Roar Extreme V-Jump book.
Here, Fang and Mashiro travel to the Zoanthrope Kingdom from the game. As they get further into the urban parts though, they find our old pal Yugo Ogami being harassed by nameless thugs. They ask if he entered into the tournament that's going on in the kingdom.
You know what? I'll save my issues with that for later, just keep going.
When Yugo says he has, they decide to test his mettle right away. Mashiro overhears their conversation and, rather loudly, proclaims Fang should sign up too. So loud in fact that it draws the attention of Yugo and the thugs. Both of them end up getting jumped, and Fang and Yugo fend off all of them. As they do, the Prince of the Kingdom steps in and orders them to stop fighting in public. He introduces himself as Prince Kronos, and of course, Mashiro is instantly charmed by him.
Question to any ladies who made it this far into the video. Is Kronos really that attractive? I mean, I'm neither a woman nor gay, but I look at him and I just think someone put icing on a really overcooked Twinkie.
This reference made in loving memory of Hostess, and all the fat asses they helped create over the years. Kronos explains the idea of the tournament and the cash prize, to which Fang suggests there might be a problem with that, namely the kind of people that would attract to this kingdom. And as he and the prince argue, Yugo stands by laughing his ass off. As it gets more heated, the prince's bodyguard Ganesha steps in and offers to take them on. Yugo is all too willing to start the fight as he rushes in, delivers a series of punches, avoids Ganesha's much slower attacks, and even finishes with a body and uppa! However, he leaves himself wide open for Ganesha to grab him, go into beast form, and slam him into a wall. He then does the same to Fang because I guess he's just an asshole in this comic. Either way, it was a dumb move because now he has two pissed off wolf zoanthropes who tee off on him, with Yugo hitting a spiral Fang and Fang hitting the Wolfgang Silver.
Have I mentioned how glad I am that there aren't any 2-against-1 fights in the games?
Kronos wishes both of them luck and hopes to see them in the tournament later, addressing each by name before departing. Fang hears Yugo's name and wants to know if he's the same Yugo that took down Tylon years ago.
Okay, where did I put... Oh! Look, it's continuity.
They exchange pleasantries before Mashiro remembers that they have to hurry up and register for the tournament, and that's where Fang and Yugo bid their farewells. All in all, an okay little filler comic which gave a brief glimpse at what it would be like to have the two Bloody Roar universes cross each other.
And of course, none of the manga's characters would ever be seen again, except for Fang. But that's a story for another day. Sorry, I meant that's a game for another day. Because, you know, I'm covering a game next time, not a manga. So,